When you think of Periyar E.V. Ramaswamy, you probably think of one of modern India's most fierce social reformers, a man who spent his entire life trying to tear down the caste system. So how on earth does a guy like that, a fighter for equality, end up demanding a whole separate country? It seems like a huge contradiction, right? Well, let's dig in. And that's really the big question we're tackling here. It feels like a paradox, doesn't it? A fight for universal human dignity that ends with a call to draw new borders. But as we're about to see, for Periyar, this wasn't a contradiction at all. In his mind, it was the only logical step forward. To get how he got there, we have to go back to the beginning. Because, before he was this firebrand separatist, he was actually right there in the mainstream, working hand in hand with Mahatma Gandhi in the Indian nationalist movement. So in the early days, Periyar was all in on the Indian National Congress. He looked at Gandhi's programs, especially things like abolishing untouchability, and saw a huge opportunity. He thought, okay, this could be a really powerful way to bring about social change and build support for the non-Brahmin movement. He genuinely believed in the dream of a new, equal, and united India. And what's just wild is how fast this all happened. We're talking about just over a decade. In that short time, Periyar goes from being a key Gandhian ally to one of his biggest critics, and from a nationalist fighting for one India to a separatist demanding a new one. I mean, what could possibly trigger such a dramatic U-turn? And you can really feel the weight of that shift in this quote. This wasn't some easy snap decision for him. You can hear the genuine sadness in his words. But he felt that when it came to the core issues of self-respect and the destruction of caste, he simply had no other choice. So what was the breaking point? Well, it really boiled down to their completely opposite views on the very structure of society. See, Periyar wanted to completely annihilate caste, but he was absolutely horrified to find out that Gandhi actually defended the traditional caste system, what he called Varnashrama Dharma, and saw it as a key part of his vision for India. And then came this moment in 1927. This statement right here was the absolute last straw. For Periyar and the other non-Brahmin leaders, hearing Gandhi, the leader of the movement, praise the very system and the very group they saw as their oppressors, well, it felt like a slap in the face, an unforgivable betrayal. From that point on, there was no going back. So after that break, it's like a switch flipped for Periyar. He started looking at the entire independence movement with new eyes. And he started asking a dangerous question. What if this whole call for Indian unity wasn't about creating equality at all? What if it was just a clever cover to protect the old, deeply unjust social order? And this is where he lands on a truly radical idea. He realized the nationalists weren't just ignoring the problem of caste. No, it was worse than that. He believed they were actively building their new India on top of the caste system. The unity they were always talking about, it was a unity of unequal parts where everyone was locked into their place in the hierarchy. Okay, so let's break down his critique because it's pretty sharp. First, he argued that nationalism took the interests of one small group, the upper castes, and dressed them up as national interests for everyone. Second, he said it was taking ancient Brahminical ideas with all their built-in hierarchies and just giving them a modern political paint job. And third, he saw a powerful new alliance forming between the social power of Brahmins and the money of North Indian business classes, or Baniya. This was a deep, powerful critique. But to really get why his solution was to demand a separate nation, we need to introduce a really cool concept from a philosopher named Henri Lefebvre. It's the key that unlocks Periyar's next move. And this is the big aha moment, right here. Periyar's thinking shifted from being just about people and their relationships to being about the space they live in. He realized that if you really want to change a society, fundamentally change it, maybe you have to change the very ground it stands on, the space itself. Okay, so let's unpack that. First up, dominated space. What is that? Well, think of it like a game board that's rigged. It doesn't matter how you play, the rules, the layout, the whole setup is designed to make sure the same player always wins. A dominated space is a country, a city, any area that's organized to keep the existing power structure in place forever. So what's the opposite of that? Well, that's an appropriated space. This is like flipping that rigged game board over, drawing a brand new one, and writing your own fair rules. It's a space you deliberately create for a new purpose, to tear down those old hierarchies and let a truly new, equal society finally have a chance to grow. And bam, this is exactly how Periyar saw the situation. The Indian nation being proposed was, to him, a dominated space, perfectly designed to keep the caste system going forever. He concluded you could never truly destroy caste inside that space. The game was rigged. The only way to win was to build a whole new game. Okay, so what did this new game, this new appropriated space, actually look like in Periyar's mind? Well, this is what led him to demand Dravida Nadu, a sovereign, independent nation for the Dravidian peoples of South India. I mean, listen to the fire in these words. This isn't some dry political theory. This is a passionate, urgent cry for freedom. For him, this wasn't just a political strategy. It was the one and only way for his people to finally break their chains and reclaim their dignity, their self-respect. And when you put his vision side by side with the mainstream nationalism he was fighting, the difference is just night and day. Where Indian nationalism wanted to preserve tradition, he wanted a nation built on reason and science. Where it was rooted in religious values, he wanted to cut all ties with Brahmaquil religion. And most critically, where it upheld caste and patriarchy, his entire project was about destroying them both. Now here's a really important thing to get about Periyar. He was not trying to go back in time. His vision for Dravidiya Nadu wasn't some nostalgic return to an ancient golden age. He was a hardcore rationalist. He looked at ancient texts and called out their superstition. He criticized the traditional family as a tool to oppress women. He was all about the future. So let's zoom out. What's the big takeaway here? It's that politics isn't just about ideas. It's about space. Struggles for justice aren't just fought in pamphlets and speeches. They're fought over the very territory we live in. And that same philosopher, Lefebvre, puts it perfectly. To change life, to change society, these phrases mean nothing if there is no production of an appropriated space. In other words, you can talk about changing the world all you want, but if you don't build a new space for that change to happen in, it's all just talk. So you can basically map out his entire thought process in 4 logical steps. Step 1, the goal is self-respect, which means you have to annihilate caste. Step 2, the big obstacle is Indian nationalism, because it actually protects caste. Step 3, the logical conclusion, you need a whole new political space. And step 4, the solution is to create that space, a sovereign Dravida Nadu. And that brings us right back to the question we started with. For Periyar, demanding a separate nation wasn't a distraction from his life's work. It wasn't a betrayal of his anti-caste mission. It was the ultimate, fullest expression of it. It was the only way he believed it could truly succeed. And that really leaves us with a question to chew on, for our own time. Periyar's story forces us to look around and ask, where are the dominated spaces in our world today? The places, the systems, the structures that are designed, consciously or not, to keep inequality in place. And more importantly, what would it really take to build new ones?